Hello, everyone. If you are already inside watching live, I appreciate it. Glad that you're here. A couple of real quick housekeeping things before we get going. Um, Hopefully, my audio is okay tonight. I had some technical difficulties earlier, so if you cannot hear me or I sound terrible, let me know in the comments. The other thing is, if you are not watching this live, I hope to have some timestamps in the description below within a couple of days, give or take. So you can skip past the intro part if you like, and just go to the meat of the video. So, all right, I'm going to talk tonight about how to get started. One of the challenges that people have with carnivore or keto, it is, people think, first of all, it's radically different, which it is. Sometimes they think it's insane, especially if you talk about doing carnivore and they think that you're only eating meat and nothing else, which is true in some cases. But one of the places people really get hung up on is this notion of there's this complexity to diets, and they want meal plans. I have people in the comments oftentimes that will ask me, I need a meal plan, or what exactly do you eat, and those types of things. And I get that. People want to know that, especially like what you eat, how much you eat, those types of things. But it adds a complexity to the whole thing, which is really pretty simple. So I'm going to give you just 5 principles. You got 5 fingers on your hand, or 4 fingers on a thumb. I'm going to give you 5 principles, and if you can remember these, they're not necessarily extremely hard fast, but if you stay within this kind of zone, you can start this right away. You can start tomorrow. You don't have to get bogged down in all the minutia and all the details of what keto or carnivore is. It's really pretty simple, and if you keep it simple, there's a lot of benefits to that. First of all, it's going to be a pretty radical change from what you traditionally eat, at least if you were like me. I just ate the standard American diet, which is basically crap. Um, Processed food, high carbs, all of that kind of stuff. And so you're already dealing with, the cravings that you have. You're already dealing with changing in your diet pretty radically. So to keep this as simple as possible will just help you from becoming overwhelmed. And that's really what you're going to strive for here, right? So you keep these 5 things in mind, and you're going to be doing fine. And I have some notes here on my screen. I'm going to look down on occasion. I don't want to miss anything. One thing too, just about the simplicity of things. If you just think about this for a minute, it will really help you. There is no animal on the planet that has a food scale, calorie counter, any of that kind of stuff. They don't do portion control. They don't worry about if they're getting a balanced diet. They don't do any of that. In fact, I've said this before on different videos and live streams I've been on. There is no mammal, except those in captivity, that become obese. None. If we have animals in captivity, we can certainly make them obese, but none in nature become obese. Only humans. And it is not because they count calories. It's not because they go to the gym. It's not because they don't eat when they're hungry. It's not because they don't eat until they're stuffed. They do all those things. I mean, they don't do some of those things. We raised goats for about 7 years. My goats never ran laps around the pasture to stay in shape. My goats never went to the gym. My goats ate until they were stuffed, and then they go lay down and take a nap. And they didn't get obese. They didn't need a walker. They didn't have type 2 diabetes. None of those issues, right? And that's the way animals are in nature. And it's because they eat what's appropriate, not because they portion control, count calories, count points, weigh their food, or any of that nonsense, right? So you just keep that in mind. This can be extremely simple. It's not easy, especially in the beginning, uh, but it becomes natural as you move along. But so it's not necessarily easy, but it is simple, right? So just bear that in mind as we go. Yes, yes, thank you. In and out. I am not still losing weight. I have been at my target weight for about, I would say about 6 or 7, maybe 8 months. I don't know exactly. I'm not very good at keeping time. I'll say it's been 8 months, and my wife will then tell me after I get off. It's only been 6, or it's been 10, but somewhere in that range. I have weighed right around the 155 range, a few pounds under, a few pounds over for quite some time now. So I'm not trying to lose any more weight currently. In fact, I want to lose some fat and gain some muscle. My only problem is I'm just not very consistent at working out. So, but thank you, and thank you for stopping by. All right, the 5 things to remember. If you do nothing else, you do these 5 things, and you will be well on your way, and you can figure out as much detail and spend hours on YouTube watching videos on other things as you go. First of all, stay under 50 total carbs a day. If you get this right, you almost can't screw the rest of it up, right? So, not net carbs, 50 total carbs a day. And that's kind of the middle of the range. If you're young and you're really active, you could probably get away with 100 carbs a day. If you're older, if you're not very active, if you want to lose weight, I would absolutely stay under 50. And for some people, they need to get as close to 0 as possible. So under 50 total carbs a day. Now, if you do mostly carnivore and you're not adding in any kind of veggies or anything like that, it's just no problem. In fact, when we first started, we did count carbs. Well, 5 years ago when I first started, I counted net carbs, which is just a trap. Just don't go there. We counted carbs. After a while, I got to where I counted total carbohydrates, but I'm not a veggie lover. I don't eat a lot of vegetables. I don't do any of that stuff. I no longer count any carbs whatsoever. I just don't pay any attention. But if you're going to add vegetables and you're going to add that type of thing into your diet, under 50 carbs a day, that automatically eliminates just a huge section of food. So no potatoes, right? The starchy, high carb vegetables are not on the menu. You're not gonna be able to add a bunch of sugar to anything that you eat because you're gonna get over 50 carbs. So under 50 carbs gets you a long ways down the path, right? So under 50 total carbs a day, and you can adjust that. If you're not losing weight at the rate that you want, you can cut that down. If you want a few more and you're not having any issues, you're kind of where you want to be, and you're making your goals and you're feeling good, and you want to add in a little more carbs, it's perfectly fine. But under 50 total carbs a day. So that cuts out lots of food. What are you going to eat? So number 2, mostly animal products. So primarily meat, eggs, real dairy, full fat dairy, right? Those types of things, that's on the menu. What do we typically eat? We eat a lot of beef. We eat some pork because we eat a lot of bacon. We eat lots of eggs, and we eat real cheese. So no processed stuff, no hydrogenated oil, none of that kind of stuff, right? In fact, just this is not on the list, but a hydrogenated oil, vegetable seed oils, they're just not good for you. Vegetable seed oil and vegetable oil, shortening vegetable oil, it's in everything. That literally didn't exist 120 years ago, not even 120 years ago, probably I think in 1930. So vegetable seed oil is not natural. It did not exist on the planet right? Don't eat it. It's not good for you. It's full of omega-6 fatty acids. They're highly inflammatory, and it's just bad, right? So get that stuff out of your diet. You're going to eat. We eat a lot of beef, pork, because we eat bacon, a lot of eggs, real cheese. If you like dairy, that's perfectly fine. I use heavy whipping cream in my coffee until about the last, I don't know, week or 10 days. I've maybe 2 weeks now. I don't know how long exactly, but I've stopped putting heavy whipping cream in my coffee because I don't have any issues with my stomach. And this is one of the things to keep in mind. If you have any kind of lactose intolerance or anything, dairy bothers you, um, it doesn't me as far as my stomach goes. However, it does bother my sinuses slightly. So I get a little more phlegm and I get a little more sinus drainage. And I've cut out heavy whipping cream to see if that will help at all. So that's kind of the main portion of what you're going to be eating. If you like vegetables, fine. Saute them in real butter. Put butter on them, because vegetables are the proper use of a vegetable in my mind is as a fat carrier, right? So saute them in butter, salt them, put some butter on top, and you'll get a little of extra fat in your diet. So that's a good thing. And now my wife likes vegetables. She still eats salads sometimes because she just likes it. And if you do, that's fine. Just low carb. Uh, what else about animal? Carbs do not feel good. And by the way, hello. Hey, yes, Jim. A carnivore, not a doctor. Okay, yes. I'm also not a doctor, Jim. And that's good. Actually, now that I read your name again, Jim, I get it. It took me a while, but now I do. Yeah, I do actually from time to time have bad food. I greatly limit that, and primarily to holidays, or rare special occasions. I'm not quite as tight as I used to be on that, but I'm still pretty conscious about that. And my youngest daughter came down and brought these awesome homemade from scratch cinnamon rolls, and I ate one, and it was good, right? I mean, it tasted great. Literally, it made my stomach hurt, right? I eat a bunch of carbs, I feel it the next day. And sometimes I feel it immediately. I can just tell. It also gives me some issues with my gout. So carbs, once you get that cleaned out of your system, you're going to find that it really does impact you a lot. Some people more than others. So keep that in mind. Also, if you add in veggies, one thing that you're going to discover in time is how foods really do affect you, especially if you're older already, which I'm older, obviously, and I was vastly overweight, 120 pounds. And once you stop eating all that stuff, all of a sudden you'll eat something and you realize how it makes you feel. But before, you never noticed because you just felt bad all the time. My wife especially has discovered that with raw tomatoes. She used to have a lot of discomfort in some of her joints and some pain and stuff like that. That went away. And now if she eats too many raw tomatoes, immediately she gets that comes back. So be careful about that. Oh, yes, I'm getting a cue. It's one thing about live streaming. There's no editing. Okay. It is what it is. Yes, this was Jim's question. Carbs do not feel you, Jim's statement, I guess. Carbs do not make you feel good. By the way, hello. Yes. Hello again, Jim. Actually, your name's not Jim. You were talking to Jim. I have no idea what your name is, but it's great. I love it. All right. So my wife come in to help me because I certainly need help. So real food, that's the key here. Even if you do keto, it's real food. One last note here about what you're going to be eating. Let me just say this. When I first started doing keto, I did what I call mainstream keto about 5 years ago. Internet keto, some people call it. I counted net carbs. I lost about 50 pounds, and then I started introducing keto products, keto bread, keto fat bombs, keto candy bars, keto flour tortilla shells, keto. Look, if it comes in a bag or a box with a barcode, it probably should not be in your diet, right? With rare exception. So keep that in mind. That stuff, they have, it's only 3 net carbs. Look, if you're going to eat any of that stuff, count the entire carb content and stay under 50. And my recommendation is eat real food, not stuff that's been processed, not stuff that's been packaged. It's just not good. And in my case, what it led to was a lot of carb cravings. I have this later on down in my notes, but carb addiction is real. And I even find now that the little bit of carbs that I eat does cause more carb cravings. So I would highly recommend you steer clear of that stuff. Real whole food is what you're going to be eating. And last thing on that is if you do eat dairy, if you like cottage cheese, for example, I don't, but my wife does, full fat. There's no low fat here, right? We get energy from 2 places, carbohydrates or fat. We're not eating carbohydrates, so we get our energy from fat. And I know that's the opposite of everything you've been told. Fat will make you fat. Don't believe it. I eat lots of fat. About 70% of everything I put in my mouth calorie-wise is fat. I've lost 120 pounds. So you want full fat dairy, real dairy, no processed stuff. Okay, number 3, I already touched on this, but if you like veggies, that's fine. Low carb veggies with real butter, eat them, right? My wife does. We have, on rare occasion, we will still eat some broccoli, those types of things. We eat stuffed jalapenos with cream cheese and bacon with cheese melted on top. We have that sometimes. Stuffed mushroom caps, which isn't really vegetable, it's fungi, but those types of things are fine. Just be aware, low carb, you'll be perfectly fine. Number 4, and this is really where the simplicity comes in. You don't count calories ever. People ask me how many calories I eat. I have no clue. For the last 5 years, I have no clue how many calories I've eaten. You don't portion control, nothing like that. Again, no animal on the planet does that, right? Only us. If you eat what's appropriate to eat, you don't need to do any of that kind of stuff. So you eat real food, animal-based predominantly. You don't have to count calories, right? It's just not the way it goes. Nothing like that. Here's the rule for this. You eat when you're hungry and you eat until you're stuffed. And I don't, I've failed on, I don't know how many, 2 dozen, 3 dozen diets from the time I was, I don't know, in my late 20s until my mid 50s. I've tried everything. And so many times they say, well, just eat slow, eat until you're satisfied, not full, just eat until you're satisfied, eat less and do exercise, right? By the way, no animal starves itself intentionally except humans, right? Don't eat until you're full. Don't eat until you're satisfied, eat until you're satisfied. What they mean is you're not hungry anymore, right? Forget all that nonsense, okay? Eat when you're hungry and eat until, some people use the term, Dr. Berry, comfortably stuffed. I eat until I am stuffed. I cannot put another bite in my mouth. That's how I know that I'm done, right? I can't put another bite in my mouth. I think, okay, I'm done eating. And that's how animals eat, by the way, except for people. They eat until they can't put another bite in their mouth. And then they go take a nap, which I like to do when I'm able. The other thing here is, if you're hungry enough to eat a meal, and we'll touch on this intermittent fasting in a few minutes, but if you're hungry enough to eat a meal, eat a meal. If you're not hungry enough to eat a meal, you're probably not really hungry. And this really helped me a lot in the beginning, because one of the challenges I had was just eating out of boredom, habitual eating. You get to those kind of things, right? Yeah, eat until the meat doesn't taste good. Yeah, I'll tell you, I really do. I had bacon this evening and or this afternoon. I ate bacon and some hard Parmesan cheese until I just cannot put another bite in my mouth. It's like when you first sit down, it looks so good and you just want it. But eventually your body just says, that's it. I'm done. An interesting thing here, by the way, Dr. Jason Fung pointed this out in one of his videos that I had watched, which was really good. Our body actually it doesn't care about calories. First of all, it only cares about nutrients. It wants protein and fat, and the body controls your hunger, all of those kind of things, even your desire for foods through hormones. Your body knows when it's got enough protein and fat, and it just shuts you off. It's like you go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, and you just pork it in, man, as much of that prime rib as you can put in your face. And eventually that prime rib is not appetizing anymore. You really don't want another bite, but you can still eat a cookie. You can still eat a piece of pie. You can still stuff all those extra carbs in. It's not a problem, right? But the meat and the fat, your body just says, okay, that's it. We're done. And so, yeah, eat until it doesn't taste good. I just eat until I can't put any more in my mouth. And I know I'm full. So if you're hungry enough to eat a meal, eat a meal. If you're not, you're probably not really hungry. And that did help me a lot in the beginning because of you sit down to watch TV, you want to eat. At certain times of the day, you want to eat. And if you're eating this way, then you don't really need to do that. You don't want to go and snack. You don't want to graze. Eat until you're full. Eat again when you're hungry. And if you're not really hungry enough to eat a meal, don't eat. There are some things you can snack on, and we do this as well. Again, in the beginning, I'd just be really, really careful with this because what you don't want to do is be 2, 3, 4 months in and just fall back into these bad habits. But there are some things that are okay that you could eat outside of just animal products or veggies if you really have some moderation or some real discipline in that area. Dark chocolate, 70, 75% or higher dark chocolate, you eat a little square of that dark chocolate. As long as you're staying under your 50 carbs, roughly, that's perfectly fine. Nuts are okay. Peanuts are not really nuts; they're legumes, but it is one of the things that I do. I will eat peanuts. Right now, we have some. I don't always keep them, but often I do. And low carb fruit like blueberries, raspberries, those types of things. So if you want to have a handful of nuts with your meal, you want to have a handful of blueberries, with your meal, it's not the end of the world. All right. Just what you don't want is, a huge amount of carbohydrates, a huge amount of sugar. It's just it's not your friend. Okay. So steer clear of that. Number 5, salt is your friend. Now, this is another thing that is just the opposite of what we've been told for decades. In fact, one of the reasons why people get caught up in meal plans and portion control and all of that kind of stuff, even the notion of just eating keto or carnivore, is because it's contrary to everything we've been told for decades. People used to ask me in the beginning, how are you losing weight? And I said, just go to the government's dietary guideline page and do the opposite of everything they said. That really about 80% is true, right? Outside of they say don't eat processed food or added sugar. Everything else is the opposite of what they said. You take their food pyramid, you turn it upside down, and that's what you eat, right? So we've been told salt is bad for you. Salt causes high blood pressure. Salt, it's just all this stuff, right? The reality is we need salt. And when you stop eating processed food, you won't get enough. All right. I had high blood pressure, like crazy high blood pressure At the Walmart kiosk, one time I sat down, checked my blood pressure. The sign came up and said, "Seek medical attention immediately." All right. Today, my blood pressure runs, I don't know, 115/80, in that range about all the time. If I take it correctly and I sit down in the morning and do it. So, and I salt my food heavily. So salt is your friend, especially in the beginning. It is going to help you a lot. All right. So, so people say, well, how much salt? Here's how much. You salt your food to taste. If your food doesn't taste salty enough, put more on it. Okay. If it tastes bland, it needs salt. Salt is a flavor enhancer and your body absolutely needs it. So get plenty of it. We get a lot of sodium in the processed foods because it's everywhere. When you stop eating processed junk, you're going to need some salt. So salt your food to taste. And in the beginning, don't be afraid of either buying some electrolyte mix like Element or something like that, or make your own electrolyte mix. I have a video, shameless plug. You can go watch that. Do those kind of things. You need sodium, potassium, magnesium, right? Those things are really important. So make sure you get enough of those. Don't be afraid of it, especially in the beginning. This was actually, as I made this list, I thought of this. And so this is the bonus before we get to a handful of tips. That is work in intermittent fasting. So I did a video, and actually someone unsubscribed because of the title of my video, which was "I no longer intermittent fast." He took exception to that title, said it was clickbait. We're still live streaming. My wife has just brought in a plastic. She said it over there, or I'd show it to you. It's Calm, which is magnesium. So we use that. We use magnesium, and we put that inside the electrolyte mix that we mix up, and we drink that. And especially early on, I still do it. My wife still does it. A lot of people don't get enough salt, so we're moving backwards. Now we're going to move forward. Working the intermittent fasting. Where was I? Yes. So I say now that I no longer intermittent fast, and which is true, although somebody did take exception to that, me saying it. But in the beginning, I did do intermittent fasting, and this is what I mean by that. You just shorten the window that you eat in. Okay, you eat at noon, and then you eat your last meal at 8 o'clock. Right? If you do that, you're fasting the whole rest of that day. So if you eat your first meal at noon and you eat your last meal at 6 o'clock, that's a 6-hour eating window, and you're intermittent fasting for the rest of the day. It is a great way to lose weight. Now, I had to purposely do that in the beginning, and I did it because I really wanted to kind of jumpstart my weight loss. I think it's a great thing to do. And in fact, doing other fasts are good as well. There was a while when I did 1 meal a day. Then I was kind of every other day, I'd do 1 meal a day, and then 2 meals a day, and then back to 1 meal. I did a little bit of 1 meal every 2 days for a while. So that really does help weight loss, right? You don't eat, you lose weight. That's just the way it works, because your body has to run on something. It runs on the fat stores. So, but here's kind of my take on intermittent fasting now. I don't know that you should start doing intermittent fasting on your first day. You can, as long as you can kind of power through. But I would still say, if you're normally eating 3 meals a day, you get up in the morning and you're hungry, eat. If you're hungry at noon, eat. If you're hungry at 6 or 7 o'clock, eat, right? If you're hungry enough to eat a meal, and eat until you're stuffed. But here's what you're going to find. You're going to find that eventually, and it might be 2 or 3 weeks in, it may be a month or 2 in, you're not going to be hungry in the morning. And it's just going to happen. So I say I no longer intermittent fast because I rarely eat before noon. I mean, rarely ever before noon, and because I'm not hungry. And when I eat, I am stuffed, and then I will eat again in the evening, and not always, but usually, right? Because I'm doing 2 meals a day most of the time now. But I don't purposely skip meals now where I would normally eat, which is really the definition of fasting. You abstain when you would normally eat. So that kind of 1 or 2 meals a day will just become natural eventually. You don't have to eat 6 times a day. That's another thing. We've been told, oh, eat 6 small meals a day, 2 snacks in between, eat right before you go to bed. Look, we're really not designed for that. Okay. We eat and then we don't eat again until we're hungry. And the body functions a lot better for a lot of reasons that we won't talk about, but for a lot of reasons, if that's what we do. So if you really want to accelerate your weight loss in the beginning, eat at noon, eat your last meal at 6, maybe at 8 at the latest, and then shrink up that feeding window from, noon to 6 or 1 to 7 or whatever. Don't eat the rest of the time. Let's see, what does Ron say? Hello, Ron. Evening. Fasting today and we'll eat in the morning. Yeah. So that's the other thing. Some people actually prefer to eat their meal in the morning and then at noon. That's perfectly fine, right? It's just if you want to jumpstart the weight loss, do that. I would just, the one caveat there is it's a big change in the beginning. So, if you're hungry, I say eat. The intermittent fasting or the shortened feeding window will come naturally in time, right? But there are lots of benefits to fasting. Dr. Jason Fung, go check out his videos. There's other people as well, but I'm a fan of Dr. Jason Fung. He has a huge amount of information out there about fasting, both longer extended fasting and also intermittent fasting. Yes. Any tips? Oh, let me get that up there. Any tips on a person without gallbladder? Yeah. So this is a great point, Papa Bear. I'm glad that you said it. Yes. And Jim, which is not his name, says that check out Dr. Ken Berry. And that's a great resource, by the way. You can go, he has hundreds of videos now that you can check out. And also, Dr. Chafee has explained in some of his videos really well about what happens without a gallbladder. So we do not digest fat the way we do the other macronutrients. It needs a bile, which is normally produced in the gallbladder. If your gallbladder has been removed, then the liver actually steps up and can produce the bile that you need. I would definitely go check out Dr. Berry or Dr. Chafee, their videos on that. But the biggest issue is I do some live streams, in fact, every 2 weeks with minimalist carnivore Chad and also Dave Mack from Japan. His channel is No Carb Life. So Chad has no gallbladder, and he is super strict carnivore. So I'm about 80-90% carnivore because I do eat stuff that Chad never eats. He uses hard Parmesan cheese a lot. He's also tried ox bile and some different things. He may also have a video where he talks about that, but he knows from experience, and Chad's been really strict carnivore. I'm thinking for about going on 6 years, right? So no gallbladder. He finds that the doing the cheese is a great help. Also, you may just cut back slightly on the fat. The principles here mostly of this has been talking about simplicity, but obviously one of the things as we move along is we do kind of fine tune our diet. My wife likes way more fat in her diet than I do, which is, I think, fairly common for women. So if you have a lot of digestive challenges with that, you might cut back a little bit on the fat and see. Chad, I believe, cut out butter and some different things like that. And again, he says that the Parmesan cheese greatly helps him. Lindquist is his last name. His channel is Minimalist Carnivore. So you can, and if you go to my channel and you go to Carnivore Strong, we have a bunch of live streams. They're just called Carnivore Strong. Have 3 of us on little thumbnail. That is Chad, and Dave Mack is the other guy in there. And so his pages are also linked in the description of those videos as well. So it is not that uncommon. Yes, thank you for the subscription, by the way. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and thanks for the tip there as well, Jim, to Papa Bear. Check out Kim Berry. Dr. Berry has incredible videos. And okay, let's see. Anyway, intermittent fasting. The other thing, by the way, no gallbladder, probably shortening your feeding window may help that as well. So hopefully you'll be able to get the information you need, though. Check out those other videos. A few tips, especially in the beginning. I remember back when we first started, people call this the keto flu, the carnivore flu, what have you. When you first stop eating carbs, your body takes some time to adjust. Okay. It's a combination of things. One is Dr. Kim Berry has a lot of videos on this as well, which is carb addiction. Look, carb addiction is a real thing. And if you look up the symptoms for the keto flu, you're going to find that those symptoms are almost exactly the same as if you quit smoking or you quit drinking or you quit anything else that's addictive, right? You're lethargic, you get a headache, you don't have any energy, you don't feel good, you just kind of feel off. Yeah, okay. That's because you've been stuffing your body with carbohydrates and had spiked glucose and insulin levels nonstop for decades. And now you stop all that, and the dopamine hit's not there anymore whenever you put the the Krispy Kreme donut in your mouth or the big bowl of peanut butter finger ice cream. All of that's gone. The other thing is, that's part of the issue. The other issue is the salt. So we would drink a cup of beef bouillon, and again, look, some of the stuff that you're going to eat it's not ideal. Like, beef bouillon has MSG in it, whatever. Okay. Unless you're buying organic or all natural or something, but we didn't, right? A couple cubes of beef bouillon, 2 in a cup of water, heat it up, drink it in the evening. That really helps. Make sure you get plenty of salt. The other thing is, if you're going to just jump in head first in carnivore, and really go down to, 10, 12, 20 carb total a day, you're probably going to suffer a little more. Okay. A lot of people, in fact, Professor Barquet especially recommends that people transition into carnivore over about a 4 to 6 week period, right? And just begin to do carnivore based one day, and then, not just total trash, like don't go to the drive-through, but, keep that carb level a little higher and work your way in. If you can do that, I think that's a great thing. There's lots of reasons for that as well. Because of the fact that your gut biome changes, there's all of the bacteria in there that's built up dealing with carbohydrates. All of that has to transition. There's issues with diarrhea and all kinds of that stuff that you deal with, right? A slower transition is probably easier if you can practice moderation. And this is an area where you really need to know yourself. I suck at moderation. I do not moderate. I can abstain, but I don't moderate, right? My wife's a moderator, not me. So I can't slowly work into that kind of stuff. I just, so if you're going to jump in with both feet, just keep those kind of things in mind. The first week or so might be a little rough, but if you power through, right, you can make it through the first week or so, you're going to feel better than you have in decades. Okay. And remember, salt is your friend. Carb addiction is real. I already talked about that. Yes, intermittent fasting. I used to do it more, but now I just eat when I'm hungry. Yeah, that's exactly it. Rarely now will I purposely fast. I haven't recently. Actually, I haven't for a while. Now, and again, as I mentioned earlier, I think there's some real benefit to fasting with autophagy, some other things. I think there really are some real health benefits to fasting. And so I think it's a great idea to do a 24 or 36 hour, 73-day fast, 5-day fast. I think all of those things are actually good. And I think that there's a lot of benefits. But the great thing about once you are kind of into keto, whole food keto, or carnivore for not that long a period of time, you will find that your appetite just changes. Your hunger signals are totally different. In fact, I don't know if you notice this or not, but I got to where my appetite, my hunger signals changed so much that I was probably not eating enough for a while. And I really didn't have the appetite to eat anything. I really wasn't hungry, but I could just feel like I probably should go eat. So so it does change. And intermittent fasting, we're not truly fasting anymore. It just becomes natural. So yes. So great question, and thank you, Randy. I see that you were able to put a comment on. Randy is, I have known Randy longer than I've been married, and I've been married for 30 years, 31 years. 30. My wife is going to come in here in a minute again to tell me. I got married in 1992. Is that even right? God, I'm in trouble. Yes, 1992. Anyway, my wife is laughing now outside the door. Anyway, I was in the Army with Randy, and I think maybe another person that we were in the Army together with, Bama from Alabama, is maybe watching. Yeah, so the stevia we do use some, Randy, and we make. Although I'm not doing it right now because I've cut out heavy whipping cream for probably a month or so to see if it totally clears up my sinuses. We use stevia in our when we make keto ice cream, and also it does have it does now Truvia. I'm not sure what's in that, and I am going to butcher the erythritol. Maybe not too bad, but you know what I'm saying. You can look at it there. Randy put up 3 terms. The middle one is stevia or stevia, however. Truvia, I don't know what's in that, but the stevia, there are some people that aren't huge fans. Some people say it triggers their desire for more sweet. We actually do use it, and so I would say generally it's vastly better than sugar, right? And it does come from a plant. Also, the erythritol is also, it is found naturally, not in the concentrations you'd normally get it, but the stevia we use does have some of that in it. I think we use wholesome stevia, wholesome organic stevia, and we use that. So if that's what you sweeten your coffee with sugar, that's better than sugar, right? And it's better than any artificial sweetener. That's probably the one thing I would say. If you want to sweeten things, yeah, use stevia, use monk fruit, whatever. Just stay away from the actual artificial sweeteners, right? No NutraSweet, which is aspartame, no saccharin, just get rid of that stuff. Okay. The stevia is fine. We use it. I mean, we don't use it every day, and we don't use it a huge amount, but we do use it, and we use it in our electrolyte drink mix, and also in our keto ice cream. We don't sweeten tea with it or anything, but hey, here's what ultimately there's people, and maybe in the comments later will beat me up on this. Maybe right now might beat me up on this. Our youngest daughters are still do stuff that we don't eat, me or my wife. But here's the thing. If your biggest vice is stevia or even an artificial sweetener, and you're mostly whole food keto, well, then you're 90% of the rest of the population of Western culture. Okay. So I just don't get too hung up on that kind of stuff, right? I mean, if people say, well, you're eating too much fruit. Okay. But if you're staying under the 50 or 60 carbs a day and your vice is food, I mean, don't worry about it, right? Unless you have some real health issues you need to take care of. So I wouldn't worry about that. I'm looking at the door again. Normally, my wife does not come in here very often while I'm live streaming, but tonight she's coming in to see me several times. I think it's because I shaved. Yes, now she's laughing. It's because I shaved.
Sometimes stevia or sometimes that sweeteners,
Yes.
it triggers your
Yes.
that cause you to crave.
Yes.
More.
Now I asked my wife if she wanted to come on the live stream, and she said no. But she has come in to reinforce what I mentioned a moment ago. The only thing to be aware of with sweeteners is they sometimes will trigger your that craving for sweetness, right? It also does some other things, but we won't go there. We're hitting 45 minutes. I'm coming in for a landing. If you have a weakness, get it out of your house, right? I know people that say, well, we're gonna start doing this as soon as we use up all the bad food," which I guess if that works for you. I was really fortunate. My wife was never overweight. My wife's always been very very small. In our 30 plus years of marriage, Joni had gained about 35 pounds over that entire course of time, from about 100 to about 135, about 99 probably. In fact, when we got married, where I had gained all the way up to about 275. But when I started this, my wife did it with me. She still does it with me, and that is a great help. So if your spouse can do this with you, man, it's a hard transition in the beginning. And if you're trying to do it and the rest of your family is still eating spaghetti and frozen pizza, it becomes even harder. Uh, and I understand that if you cannot get that stuff out of your house, it is much more of a challenge. But I found, especially in the beginning, not having that stuff around me, it was better. Okay. So if you can get that stuff out of your house, do that. Earlier, someone had asked me, and I had this as my last little note here, about, oh yes, you are correct, and I was wrong. Yes, thank you for that. That is the sugar alcohol. That's not what I was thinking. It was. That is sugar alcohol, and you will only get that in processed foods. So normally, if you look at keto stuff, you're going to see that ingredient, and it is sugar alcohol. They don't count it as carbohydrates. But here's the issue with alcohol, and also that sugar alcohol, and also fructose, and that is it is not metabolized the same way that other carbohydrates are metabolized. Fructose and alcohol both are metabolized by the liver. It's one reason why fatty liver disease, especially in young people, has just become an epidemic. It's because of the high fructose corn syrup, because fructose cannot be metabolized except in the liver, and it causes fatty liver disease if you just have too much, right? And although it's not a complete on and off thing, but if you drink alcohol, your body makes every effort to metabolize that first before it metabolizes the glucose or the fructose that you have in your system. And so, you eat a whole bunch of carbs, you drink a bunch of alcohol, it really will make you fat. So I would avoid the alcohol, sugar as much as possible. Again, you're mostly going to find that in processed foods anyway. And I would just cut those out the best that you can. And yes, actually, wrong comment. Yes, that's what I was mentioning earlier. And that was, if your stool is a little loose, usually it is too much fat. And if you have no gallbladder, that just adds to that challenge. Yes, only meat and eggs. Quickly, I guess one last thing here. Two things quickly before I get to the final one. One, In and Out had actually asked me earlier if I was. Again, thank you for the comment. If you're still with me, if I was still losing weight, and I am not. And so other people have asked me this, like, well, are you still losing weight? Will you keep losing weight? About that. No, you will not. Your body, once you begin to eat something that's appropriate for you to eat, which is predominantly animal-based diet, right? With a few low carb vegetables, a handful of berries, a handful of nuts. Here's what you're going to find. Your body knows what it needs as far as nutrients goes, and it will tell you when it's hungry and it will tell you when it's full. And you will get to about your ideal weight. Now, your ideal weight may not be what the BMI says, right? Um, I am still on the edge of what people would say BMI wise, right? As far as being overweight, I'm just right on the edge of that. And I have still have plenty of body fat that I could lose. I could be lighter, but I've been at this weight for quite some time now. You don't have to adjust what you eat. Your body will just find its happy place. Okay. Now, your body doesn't necessarily like to have radical change though either. So you're going to see some weight stalls, right? When you're doing this, you're going to lose some weight. You're going to lose a lot of water in the beginning. Eventually, you're going to hit a spot. You're going to stall for a couple weeks. It's perfectly normal. Okay. If you stall for a week or two, it's okay. You don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. Just press on. Now, if your weight stalls for longer than what you think it should, cut out some of the dairy if you eat too much of it, right? I mean, if you drink a half a gallon of heavy whipping cream every day and eat, 2 pounds of cheese, probably too much dairy. So, you can trim those things back. But what I wouldn't do, especially in the beginning, don't portion control, don't count calories, don't do that type of stuff. And the final thing is on macros. Also, people ask me about, well, how much fat, how much meat, how much protein. Again, the only animal on the planet that ever thinks about those kind of things. And my thought on that is pretty simple. I've never counted macros ever. Right now, in time, we've discovered my wife likes more fat than me, and so she adds butter and those types of things a lot. Right. I don't add as much. She'll pour extra butter on her steak. I don't really do that. She'll put butter on her hamburgers. I don't really do that. I mean, they're fried in grease already. A good place to start out calorie wise is about 70-30 fat to protein. And I think that's a pretty good place to start, but you don't have to count it, right? Eggs are basically 70-30, right? 70-30 ground beef is 70-30. Okay, ribeye, 70-30. And bacon, 70-30. It's miraculous that what we need is basically 70% fat to protein ratio as far as calories go. And that's what most food that we're going to be eating is, right? So, again, what you find kind of naturally in animal-based products is exactly kind of the fat content that we need. Now, 6 months in, if you think you need a little more fat in your diet, have some more. And I think that a good rule of thumb here is, again, our cravings, our hunger, our, all of those things, it's all driven by hormones. The body knows what it wants. Do you know why my wife puts more butter on her hamburger? Because it tastes really good to her, right? Now we have not done this, but I know many people kind of in the carnivore space on YouTube that they would crave butter. They just eat a spoonful of butter. I've never done that. Okay. I never had an appetite for that, but they did. And so they did it, right? Once your body gets a little lined out, it will tell you what it wants. If it wants more fat, it's going to let you know, right? Now, it may take a while to get there, but eventually you will arrive. And again, there's always exceptions to this. If you have medical conditions and those types of things, that is something that you need to keep in. Sorry about that. Yes. Oh, let me get this up here. My wife has made homemade bone broth, Randy. I don't love it, but usually what we use as far as that goes, if you buy it, yeah, you can do that. Again, I wouldn't get too hung up on that. I mean, is homemade bone broth the best? Yeah. If you buy bone broth at the store to make something, Okay. Again, if those are the kind of things you're doing, that's the worst part. It will. It's trivial in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that if you want to buy some bone broth. And we did a lot more keto type recipes in the beginning, and we still do some now. But as time has gone on, we've got simpler and simpler in the things that we eat. Right. So in the beginning, it seems like the variety is just really shrunk. But as time goes by, it just becomes kind of the natural part of eating. Um, yes, thank you. Oh, yes, actually, Papa Bear was telling Jim, thank you. Yes, and thank you, Jim, for chiming in. Um, yeah, so and yes, and Jim says he does hope that you can find your way, Papa Bear. I know there are many people, and I would really recommend Dr. Ken Berry's website. By the way, Dr. Ken Berry has a private community, which I think you can join the private community for free. Now, there's also for like $5 a month, you can access. He has private community live streams. I am a member there, and they have just a host of people that have been involved in carnivore and keto for years. And there's a lot of healthcare professionals that are in that private community. There are some coaches in that private community, and they can give you a huge amount of help as well. So I would definitely check that out uh, um, as well. Um, yeah, so Papa Bear, and yeah, and look, I'm reading these comments probably wrong so yeah, not sure if it's directed to me. I do only meat and bone broth at this point. No change. Yeah, that is, and look, when I first started, it was probably a week or better before. It was probably quite some time. I really felt off for a while, and I have my gallbladder, right? So, um, those kind of things. Those kind of things are hard to deal with, but I would definitely check that out. I'm with your wife regarding fat and butter. I've lost 70 pounds in 8 months. Yes, that is awesome. Um, Appreciate you and all here. Glad I found your channel. Yes, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. One final thing, just before I'm going to wrap this up now, because I wanted to be about 45 minutes. We're bumping up on an hour. One final thing to keep in mind: if you do keto or carnivore and you're taking medication, particularly for high blood pressure, in fact, I should say particularly for pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, anything like that, or for high blood pressure, those types of things, it is something you really need to be aware of, because when you stop eating carbohydrates, your blood sugar will no longer be as high as it was, right? So that is one area where you really need to be careful, that either you keep an eye on your sugar, you kind of get a feel for that, right? So again, Dr. Jason Fung, he has helped I don't know how many now, hundreds of people reverse type 2 diabetes. Some of them just chronically bad, 100 units of insulin a day, and well, those patients have not been totally reversed. Have come completely off insulin and down to just a pill. But many people, in fact, the vast majority of people, unless they have some other underlying health issue, many people have come off medication for high sugar for diabetes completely. But you don't want to have no more sugar spikes and still be taking your insulin. So, or well, you don't want to be taking it at the same level. It's just something you need to be aware of, and you need to work with your doctor, monitor that type of thing. The same with high blood pressure. My blood pressure came down not as quickly as my sugar did, but my blood pressure came down pretty rapidly once I started losing weight. I cut out all the carbs, that kind of stuff. So you just really need to be aware of those kind of things. Watch your blood pressure, watch your sugar, talk to your doctor, do those things, right? I'm not a doctor. And even if I was, I'm not your doctor. So just be aware of those kind of things if you're on medication. To watch it closely when you have a radical diet change. Yes, thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate it. Oh, I'm thinking, if that Mikey, is that you? Just tell me yes. I won't divulge any of your personal information. I hope it is. If it's not the Mike Wilson I'm thinking it is, thank you very much anyway. If it is the Mike Wilson that I know personally, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. And if it is the Mike Wilson I know personally, tell your dad and brother I said hi. All right. Any other final questions? We have hit an hour, and I am going to wrap this up. Again, if you're not watching this live, within a few days there will be timestamps. You can jump around in the video. If you've stayed here till the bitter end, I greatly appreciate it very much. I really do. The my channel is going to hit 4,000 subs in the next day or so. I think it was at 3,960, which is incredible. I appreciate you guys very much. I appreciate you leaving comments and sticking around. It's hard to explain how I feel about that, because it just is. And so it's a humbling thing that people would come by, hang out with me for a while, and listen to what I had to say. So yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. No other questions. We're going to wrap it up. I really thank you guys for hanging out. We're going to do it again next Thursday. My plan is almost every Thursday night to do a live, and hopefully have a video up in between those if I'm able to do it. So we'll see you next Thursday if all things go well. And you guys have a great evening. Thank you. Bye. Oh, here we go. One other question real quick. Would you be willing to share approximately how many pounds? Yes, I would. So the one thing to remember, you got in just right before I hit the in stream button, by the way, but it's okay. Keep in mind, I am only 5'6", right? Right now I weigh 155 pounds, and what I eat at a meal, what I ate this probably a few hours ago, probably a little more than a half pound of bacon, I would guess, maybe 8, 9, 10 ounces. I don't know, roughly that. And then I don't weigh my food, so I don't know exactly. And then, but I probably ate, a few ounces of hard Parmesan cheese, I would guess. If I have a steak, or if I have hamburger, ground beef, I do eat dairy with my meal, so a lot. So I'm always eating some hard sliced cheese, cheddar, Swiss, something like that. So I'll always have a few ounces of that. If I can eat a half pound of meat at a meal, that's usually about it. If I have a 12-ounce ribeye, or a sous vide chuck roast, and I eat 12 ounces of that at a sitting, that's about all I can eat, right? It's just about all I can pack away, and I do eat till I'm stuffed. So 4 eggs with cheese, a few slices of bacon, man, I am stuffed. And sometimes I can't eat 4 eggs. So it doesn't. I mean, I know those don't give you weight specifically, but that's approximately what I would eat in a meal, and I would normally eat twice a day, right? Now, Dr. Ken Berry, who is 6'2" and I don't know, big muscles, and he's in great shape. He eats probably twice what I do in a day, but he is, he's younger than I am, and he's also, quite a fair amount taller than I am, and also because he's taller, he weighs more, right? So that's roughly about what I eat. Ironically, my wife eats almost as much as I do, and she's only 5'2" and probably goes about 125 right now, or she might be 5'3". So we eat in that range, but I don't really count. Okay, so I hopefully that answers your question at least somewhat. Yes, Randy, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. You stopping by, and lost all my weight just by cutting grain, sugar, and starch out of my life. Yes, by the way, that's actually, that's almost what you do when you do keto, whole food keto, or carnivore. And that's one thing I don't hardly ever eat is grain, sugars, and starches. You cut that out, and you are well on your way to radically change life for the most part. So, and also vegetable seed oils, they're just bad, right? They're just bad. So vegetable oils are terrible. Soy oil, corn oil, sunflower seed oil, get rid of that stuff. All right. Any final questions now? I don't see any. We're still pretty close to being on schedule. Only 5 minutes over. We're going to call it a night. Thank you again, guys. I greatly appreciate it that you came and hang out with me. And we'll see you next Thursday or maybe before in a video. So have a great evening.